I'm Beth Wagner. Welcome to my channel focused on movement and function. In today's video, I'm going to show you my favorite exercises for restoring the range of motion and strength in your hip following total hip surgery. Then I'll show you a couple ways to improve your balance and your walking. Before we get into the exercises, I want to talk just a little bit about breathing. Breathing is a really powerful way to decrease pain by calming our nervous system and shifting our focus. So as we go through these exercises, I'll include a few cues about when to breathe and try these out on your own. See if you can find a pattern of breathing that feels good for you as you're doing these exercises. Okay, the first priority in fully recovering from your surgery is restoring your range of motion. The two directions of motion at the hip that are usually most limited after surgery are extension and external rotation, and I'll show you what those are. Extension is this movement of your hip or your leg that goes back behind your hip. This is important when you're walking. So if it's my right hip that's affected, extension is important during this part of the step. The second motion that is commonly affected is external rotation. This motion is important when we're putting on our socks and shoes or washing our feet. Okay, so the first two exercises I want to show you are range of motion exercises to restore the extension and external rotation in your hip. The first exercise is a hip extension stretch, standing with countertop support or with your hand on the wall for support. So if it's my left hip that I had replaced, I'll have the left leg back and then lunge forward onto your right leg. You should feel a stretch through the front of your left hip, and you might also feel a stretch through your left calf. Both are perfect. Typically, the farther forward you lunge, the stronger the stretch will feel, both in the hip and the calf. This is a great 2-for-1 exercise because calf tightness or stiffness can also contribute to difficulty walking and balancing. Hold this position for about 30 seconds and do 3 times on each leg. With all of these exercises, I suggest you do them on both legs for symmetry and to make sure that you're getting even stretch through your back and through other areas of your body that are being stretched with these exercises too. The next range of motion exercise has 2 parts. It's a figure 4 stretch plus a piriformis stretch. So step 1, you'll bend your knees with your feet flat on the support surface, then cross one ankle over the opposite knee. So this would be the leg that you had operated on. Step 1, the figure 4 stretch, is to gently press down on your inner thigh and hold for anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds, depending on how it feels. Then reach your lower leg and your thigh and bring your knee to your opposite shoulder. So your right knee comes towards your left shoulder. And hold again for 10 to 30 seconds. And then repeat and go back to the figure 4 stretch. Continue going back and forth between these stretches 3 times on one leg. And then again, for symmetry and to keep things even, I suggest doing them on the other leg too. Another great way to do the figure 4 and piriformis stretch is sitting up, and this might be easier to do during the day in between your other activities. So lift one leg, put your ankle over the opposite knee, and then gently press down on your inner thigh, hold for 10 to 30 seconds, and then bring your knee up toward the opposite shoulder. Again, hold for 10 to 30 seconds. Continue going back and forth between those 2 stretches 3 times on each leg. And if that stretch feels really good and you want to hold it for a little bit longer, that's just fine too. See how it feels in your body and adjust the exercise accordingly. Future Beth here with a couple modifications of the figure 4 exercise. If it's too painful for you to bring your foot up over the other knee, or you don't quite have the range of motion yet, here are a couple ways to bridge that gap. First of all, bring your foot up the inside of your leg as far up as you can go, and then gently bring your knee out to the side. If you're able to bring your foot up to the inside of your thigh, using your hands to help, and then lower your knee, that's even better. And do this with repetition. Don't try to hold this exercise yet. It's normal to feel stretch discomfort in your hip, but if you're feeling sharp pain in the hip joint, back off. Don't push this one too much. I'll show you part 2 lying down. The first step is to bend your knee up so your foot is right next to your calf, and then try lowering your knee out to the side, and then come back up. Now, if that feels comfortable, bring your foot up a little bit higher so that it's next to your knee. Then lower your knee out to the side. With this exercise, I recommend doing repetitions instead of a sustained hold. That way you'll be getting more range of motion movement through your hip joint without any strenuous stretch in the area. This will be a great way to transition into being able to do a more traditional figure 4 stretch, like I've already showed you. Moving on to the strength exercises. The first one is a heel-toe raise. For this one, also be standing next to a counter or close to a wall for a little bit of support. You'll rock forward onto your toes, lift your heels, and then rock back onto your heels and lift your toes. Continue rocking forward and backward. This is a great exercise for ankle mobility, as well as strengthening both the front and the back of your lower leg, all of which is important for getting your normal walking pattern back. The second exercise is a standing march. Also standing next to a countertop or a wall for support, you'll lift one leg up as high as you can reach your knee and then lower. I'll take a minute here to talk about breathing. I recommend inhaling as you prepare to start the exercise. Exhale as you initiate the movement, and then inhale as you return to the starting position. So with the march exercise, it would look like this. You'll inhale first, exhale, lift your leg, inhale as you bring it back down, exhale as you lift the other leg, inhale as you bring it back down. Now, if this feels like too fast of a pattern, you may also want to inhale as you lift one leg and then exhale as you lift the other leg. So it would be inhale and then exhale, and then inhale and then exhale. A lot of it depends on how fast you're performing these exercises. Play with it and see what feels best for you. The next exercise is a back leg kick. Stand next to a countertop for support and kick your leg backward. Bring it back down and kick the other leg and bring it back down. With this exercise, make sure you're not leaning too far forward or really thrusting your leg backward. You want the movement to be medium speed and well controlled. The next exercise is a side leg lift. Similar to the back leg lift, you'll be standing next to a countertop for support. This time, lift your leg out to the side and bring it back down. Switch legs and bring it back down. Similar with the previous exercise, make sure your posture is upright and you're not lurching over to the side or kicking your leg too strongly. You want these movements to be medium paced and with good control. For the heel-toe raise, the march, the side leg lift and the back leg lift. Start with 20 to 30 repetitions on each leg. If that feels like too many, do what you can do and gradually build up day to day. If you're interested in adding ankle weights, I recommend purchasing an adjustable set of ankle weights from Amazon or your local Walmart or Target might have these on hand too for a reasonable price. Start with just a couple of pounds and then progress as you develop strength and confidence. A great way to work on strengthening in your hip is simply practicing standing up from a seated position with equal weight bearing on both feet. So you'll scoot forward onto the edge of the seat and stand up, and making sure that you have 50% weight under your left foot, 50% weight under your right foot, and then sit back down. Try to use your hands as little as possible to push off from the seat. See if you can do this with your hands out front, up, and then back down. Do 20 to 30 of these. Progress and increase the repetitions as you feel comfortable. Now, for the last exercise, we're going to add balance to strength. This exercise will be standing on one leg. When you first start this exercise, stand next to a countertop or a wall for support. As you feel more and more comfortable, then start to practice this exercise without a support structure next to you and see how you do with it. Try to stand as long as you can. The goal here is about 30 seconds. And then put your foot down. One helpful tool with these exercises is to stand in front of a full-length mirror as you're doing them. Watch the level of your hip. It's normal for our hips to move side to side and a little bit up and down as you're doing these exercises, but it shouldn't look like this. Your hip shouldn't really sag, especially compared to what the other hip does. So place your hands on top of your hips and see what happens at the hip level when you do these exercises. This is especially helpful for the back leg kick, the side leg kick, and standing on one leg. Now moving on to your walking. The most important thing is to get rid of the limp. The two things I noticed most often is a lurching of the trunk and a short step length. So I'll show you what I mean by that. As people walk, they tend to take a short shuffling step on the side that they've had the surgery, and their trunk tends to lurch over to that side. The best way to address this is to practice walking in front of a mirror. See what your trunk is doing and see what your hips are doing. And try as best you can to even it out so that your step length is the same on both sides. One exercise I recommend to improve your walking is to imagine walking on stepping stones in a garden that are placed a little bit farther apart than your normal step. This will help stretch out your step and stretch out the hip that's a little bit tight. The second exercise is to walk to music that has a beat that is paced at about your normal step. You could also try this with a simple pendulum. That works well too. So as you step, you want to land your heel with the same timing on both sides. For more exercises on balance and walking, check out my other videos. I have a whole video on starting a beginner balance program that I think could be really helpful for you. And my video on my top 10 walking exercises could be very beneficial for you as well. Typical recovery from hip replacement surgery can take well over a year for a lot of people. So be patient with these exercises and continue doing them every day. Even after you feel like your range of motion and your strength are back to normal, you're walking well, you feel like you have good balance, and you're starting to return to your usual activities, I strongly recommend continuing to do these exercises once or twice a day in order to maintain that range of motion and that strength. It takes a while to develop the limp when your hip's been in pain for a long time, and it also takes a while to get out of that limp. Continuing to do these exercises will help you maintain that new way of walking and make sure that you don't revert back to your old limp. All right, that's all for this video. I hope that you find these exercises helpful for restoring your motion and your strength and helping you get back to doing the things that you love to do in your everyday life. One of my favorite things to hear from patients when they finish physical therapy is that they feel like they've gotten their life back, and I wish the same for you. If you find the content in my videos helpful for you, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Also, please share this video with anybody else you know who's had hip surgery or even who just has a tight or painful hip. This might be really beneficial for them as well. If you'd like to be notified when I release my next video, click the bell next to the subscribe button, and it's always great to see a thumbs up. Here's to your healing, health, and happiness. Have a wonderful day.